Good afternoon. It's a really nice afternoon, so it wouldn't surprise me if some people were outside instead of online today. But for those who are, thank you for joining us. We're really happy to have you here. And this is our last virtual science cafe for the spring, so thanks for joining us. I'm Laura Wilson, a 4-H science professional with the University of Maine Cooperative Extension. 4-H is a community for all kids with programs that suit a variety of backgrounds and interests and schedules, from in-school to after-school, clubs to camps. 4-H positive youth development programs are available in your local community, and we welcome every kid who wants to have fun and learn and grow. 4-H is the youth development program of the University of Maine, brought to you by the University of Maine Cooperative Extension. I hope you all take a minute to introduce yourself in the chat box today. Please just share your name and your town. Here at Maine 4-H, we have Dr. Vanessa Klein and Alice Philbrick who are monitoring the chat box. Jessie Brainerd is hosting our Q&A today, and she's working behind the scenes with me so this can all run smoothly. We're going to keep this session super simple. Our guest will share some of her cool research, a bit about herself and her pathway, and she's got a pretty cool hands-on learning experience for you today. And then we're going to have time for you to ask questions. We're going to use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen to get questions to her. You can jump in with questions at any point, so you don't have to wait till the end of the presentation to do so. A quick note about our chat box. We'd love to see your reactions to what our guest presents, and I think she's going to ask you some questions and give you some resources in that chat box today. So please try to keep on topic with that and keep the language clean and appropriate. We appreciate that. So it is my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Tora Johnson. Dr. Tora Johnson is from University of Maine, Machias, and we're really thrilled to have you here today with us. Dr. Johnson, can you tell our participants about yourself and your work and lead them through the exciting activity you have for us today?
You bet.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm really happy to be here. This is super fun. I'm Dr. Tora Johnson, and I work in a little tiny university way down east in Maine, almost to the Canadian border. And so I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about my work and actually give you some experience with it. And what I do for a living is, it's a little different. The first question I have for everybody is, who here has heard of GIS? Just give me a yes in the chat box if you've heard of GIS before. And you can even take a guess as to what GIS stands for. So, yay, oh, awesome. Some of you have actually heard. So Aiden's heard of it, Grace has heard, oh, cool. And hopefully you even have some hands-on experience with it. And if you don't, I'm going to show you how you can get some hands-on experience with it. So some of you have heard of it. I'll describe what it is. So GIS stands for Geographic Information Systems, and which is a pretty fancy sounding name for computer mapping. And so you might think, oh, I don't know about anything about that. I've never used it. But I would like to know if any of you have ever used Google Earth or a GPS, or have you ever ordered a package and tracked it online? So let me know how you've used, if you've used any of those things. So give me yes, I've used them in the chat box, just so I know. And I'm hoping to hear from everybody. You've used all of them. Awesome. So if that's true, you have used GIS, you might not be aware of it. And what you might not be aware of too is that GIS is like a growing field. There's lots and lots of jobs in the field. And even in Maine, some of those jobs just go unfilled because there's not enough people in the field. So we really need people to learn about GIS and take it in college. at my college, University of Maine in Machias, we have, it's actually a new program. We've had certificate programs and a minor program, but starting this fall, we now have an environmental GIS program, and I'm the director of that program. And so that's using computer mapping to do environmental work. So, and I'm going to show you some of the work that I do. Let me talk first a little bit about how I got into this work, because it's kind of a this way and that kind of thing. So I have 3 degrees, 3 college degrees. I have a bachelor's degree, I have a master's degree, and I have a PhD, a doctorate. And my bachelor's degree is in biology from University of Maine in Oregon. And it took me a while to get that. I'm not one of those kids who like knew from when I was a kid that I was going to be a GIS. GIS didn't really exist when I was a kid, but it exists now. And I didn't know that that's where I was headed, but I got there eventually. So I got my degree in biology after starting college in, I'm not making this up, I'm not kidding, acting with a dance minor. So I did that for a year, dropped out, sort of thought about things, took some science classes, and realized this is really what I want to do. This is where I want to go. So I went back to school and got a degree in biology and got really into environmental issues. And I started especially working on marine science. And I worked with a researcher who was looking at all the introduced species, so little critters, little plankton, so tiny swimming animals and tiny plants that are floating in the water that were being brought over to the US from Japan in big tankers that would go back to Japan filled with wood chips from forests in the Pacific Northwestern United States. And we would go there and we would take little nets and tow them through the water in these big giant tanker ships and look at the plants and animals there and study how they made new homes here. That's not really a thing you want to have happen, this introduced species thing. But it got me interested in the politics and the policy around these issues and the maps that people made. So when I went back to school for my master's degree at College of the Atlantic in Bar Harbor, Maine, I took a different tack. So I looked at computer mapping, and by then I had learned GIS, and I'll show you some of that in a minute. And I also started studying how people got into conflicts and made decisions about environmental issues. And it turns out I really kind of think it's entertaining to watch people, get these big political battles. And I'm really, really interested in helping them solve the problems and make difficult decisions. So that's what I use computer-generated maps for. And most of the computer-generated maps that I make for people are web-based, so they're online. It's a lot like playing video games. So that's one of the things about my work is I'm really kind of a techie person, and so I really I love making these computer maps. In part because it's a lot like playing video games and solving problems in the way that you solve problems with video games. And my PhD followed in that line, and most of my PhD work focused on climate change. And climate change is one of these issues that a lot of people are fighting about, and a lot of people have a lot of really hard decisions to make, and they're struggling to make them, and they're fighting about the decisions. And so my work and the work that I work with lots of colleagues all around the country and around Maine, and with communities, and probably maybe some of the communities where you guys live, I help them make some of these difficult decisions that they have to make to help them adapt to climate change. So if you have any questions about how I got here, just let me know. Feel free to stick them in the chat or the Q&A. Or I guess we want questions in the Q&A, right? And we'll get into what it is I actually do, because because it's kind of interesting. So you know it involves things like using a GPS, right, which is a way that we find locations, and you know that it has something to do with maps. And so as we go today, I'm going to show you a bunch of things that will help you understand kind of what GIS really is. But fundamentally, it's using spatial information, spatial meaning in space, right? Not space like outer space, but space like in the world, right? And using locational information, so where stuff is, and putting it on maps, and using computers to do that. And we can do all kinds of things, and I'll demonstrate some of that for you, to ask questions and answer questions and figure things out and make decisions and visualize, so make really cool things to look at. And it's really fun. It's like video games. So I'm going to share my screen with you, and as promised, and just let me know if you're not seeing my screen. And somehow I lost the chat when I did that, so I'm going to get the chat back so I can see it. I have this little handout for you. The link to this document is right here, so I can give you that. But what I want to do first is I'm going to ask each of you to answer a survey with a little map in it, and we're going to look at the map of where everybody who's on this call is. I think the panelists, except for me, have already done it, and I'll demonstrate. So this is the link. I just put it in the chat, and then I'll click here and I'll show you what to do. So where are you, quarantines? We want to know where you are. So I'm in Machias, Maine, and I'm just going to search Machias, M-E, right? And it will zoom me in there. And there it is. It's right there. And all I have to do is click submit. So if you guys would please do that right now, and we'll take a look at where everybody is. And I'm going to refresh this screen. And it will work on any kind of, great, good. I can see some of you are doing it. And so what we're looking at here, and the points are coming in as we speak. So what we're looking at here is a map of where everybody is. Come on. My computer's getting angry at me for making it do all this work. So cool. So that's me, and anybody else? Looks like we're all in Maine today. Is anybody outside of Maine? Am I missing someone? I should zoom out and just make sure. Actually, I should be able to see. Nope. Excellent. And so this right here is a geographic information system. And there's lots of bells and whistles here. You don't have to really worry about any of that. But over here in this panel over here is what's known as our table of contents. And it shows the contents of our map. And our map has 2 layers. And a GIS is made of layers. So a GIS map is made of layers. And so I've got the layer that has our locations, and I can turn that on and off using the checkbox. Oh, we got a few more coming in. Awesome. And then I have a base map. I can't turn the base map off, but I can change it. Let me zoom in so you can see. So I can switch out the base map by clicking this button right here where it says base map. And I can change it to maybe hybrid imagery. And I've got to, that's weird. That wasn't doing that before.
Just had a question come in.
Oh,
Why
yeah,
do,
yeah.
yep, we have a question of why do the red dots have yellow circles around them?
That's a really good question. They have circles just because that's the default symbol that they used, and we can change that. So, and that's the beauty of, you'll see, we'll do a bunch of that today. That's the beauty of this tool. So there we all are, right? And I can come over here to this little style change thing and click options, and I can change the way the symbol looks. And it's super easy and quick. So the fill is red. I'll probably leave it red. And the yellow outline's a little weird. So maybe I'll give it a slightly lighter red outline instead. And I'll click OK. I can also remove it. Remove the outline if I want, or make them, yeah, it's awesome. And I can change the size and the shape. So they're a little large, and if I make them a little smaller, we get to see them a little more clearly. And see how easy that was? And you can do this too. And I've, in the material that I have posted here, I'm going to show you all the maps that are listed there. So if you'd like to try this, you can, and I'll put this in the chat as well. So this link goes right to this document that we're looking at right here. And so all the maps that we're going to look at today, including some additional tools for you to use, those are all linked from this document. Oh, you know what I probably should have put is the contact information. So I'll make sure to add this as well so that you have a way to contact me, because I have no problem if you'd like to contact me. So what I want to do next is to show you some of the kinds of things that we do with these tools. So to start out with, I wonder if anyone has ever experienced, who has experienced a hurricane? Has anyone ever been in a hurricane? I have. I was once at sea in a hurricane, and it was quite an adventure. I don't ever want to do that again. Awesome, Aiden. You have, but not at sea? And not in one and by one is a great place to be, Haley. That's the perfect place to experience a hurricane. I'm really fascinated by, like, wicked fascinated by hurricanes. Oh, Haley, you were in Hurricane Sandy. That was quite a hurricane. They called that a superstorm. And I'm not sure that Hurricane Sandy is going to be in our map. We'll see. I think our map is too, yeah, it's too early. So this map, and I have a link to it, we're going to mess around. I'm just going to mess around with a bunch of maps, and feel free if you think of something that I can explore in the map or you want to know about in the map, let me know. And ask in the chat, and panelists interrupt me if I don't catch it, and because I'm happy to give it a whirl. So what I've got here is a map with a number of layers. I have a few different layers. Here's one layer right here, North Atlantic hurricane tracks. It'll take a minute to come in, and you'll see why it takes a minute to come in a sec. Come on, I just tried it just before we started. Hopefully. And this is one of those things with GIS that sometimes you do have to fiddle around with it. Here, I'm going to turn this one on. There we go. So those are all of the hurricanes from 2005 in the North Atlantic Basin. And so we can click on each of these. So this was Hurricane Ophelia. When I click on each of these hurricanes, I get a little pop-up that tells me a little bit more about the object in the map that I'm clicking on. Hurricane Delta, that's different, right? But it doesn't tell me that much about the hurricanes. I can learn more about the hurricanes if I access the information. So when I do that pop-up, and I can, when I get these pop-ups, that is calling on information that's stored, data that's stored with these lines. So that's the beauty of GIS. There's the lines, right? The squiggles. I love this one, that you see the little loop-de-loop, but there's more information that I can know about it. So if I click this link, notice when I wave my pointer over here, I see some icons, and there's a little table link. And if I click that, it pops up with a bunch of columns, and I'm adding some columns. So there's categories, so like a storm category, and then there's wind speeds over here. And so that means that there's more information about each of the storms. And so if, for instance, and I can sort right here, I want to sort the other way, sort descending. How about this? Let's see if we sort descending with the wind speeds. One of those storms had 160 knots. That's about 175 miles an hour. And if I click that, then it should light up on the map. So center on selection. So there's that spot right there. See how it's lit up? So, and that was which hurricane? Hurricane Wilma. So Hurricane Wilma was super strong, 175 miles an hour for winds at that time. I believe Hurricane Wilma, yep, hit Mexico over here and did some pretty serious damage to Mexico that year. It wasn't the most devastating hurricane that year, but it was a pretty bad one. Does anybody know a hurricane? Any hurricanes that occurred in 2005 that might have been important? I'm gonna turn on the name. There it is. Has anybody ever heard of Hurricane Katrina? There you go, Lisa, thank you. So Hurricane Katrina right here was a hurricane that hit New Orleans during, during 2005 and absolutely devastated New Orleans. And we can pick Katrina, so this is just one segment of Katrina, you can see it right there. We can pick Katrina out of this list by creating a filter. So I come back over here and I can create a filter. I'll click that little button and come in here and look for name is, and I'll choose unique and I'll find Katrina. There it is. And so that's Hurricane Katrina right there. And not only that, we can change the symbols, right? So if I click, if I look at Hurricane Katrina, now if I show the table, it should be showing me only Katrina. Turn the categories and wind speeds on again. And the name. There we go. So it's showing me only Katrina, and we can see that the wind speeds changed over time, right? So the wind speeds at some point were only 30 knots, about 35 miles an hour, and at other times it was really, really strong, 150 miles an hour, or knots, so about 160 miles an hour. So we can change the way that hurricane appears on our map by using this link here. And instead of showing location, I want to show that wind. And look at that. So here it's thicker where the wind speed was faster and thinner where the wind speed was slower. See that? How long would you estimate it would take you to make a map like this if you had to draw it like with crayons or colored pencils? So that just took me seconds. Yeah, isn't it amazing that you can do this? And it just takes a few seconds. If you tried to do it, how long would it take you? I'm not a very good drawer. Like, I don't draw really well, and it would probably take me, yeah, a while. It would take a while. And so we call this symbology, and so we can change the symbology for these maps, and it allows us to visualize these maps in different ways.
We
And now,
just received, oh, sorry to interrupt. We received another question. What other changes can you make to the map?
That's a great question. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove the filter. Oops. And here you can see that same symbology is applied to the whole map. See it? So we can change the background. Isn't it wild? It's so cool. We can change the background. We can change lots of different symbols. I'll show you some other symbols that we can change. Here's another way of visualizing it, where instead of showing the lines, it's showing all the same hurricanes, but as dots indicating the wind speed, the wind strength in the size of the dot. And so it works in that same way. It looks like my big pile of North Atlantic hurricane tracks. One thing about this map is I'm using data that's hosted by other people, that's created by other people, and it looks like somebody's layer isn't working, but that's okay. We're actually running a little low on time, so maybe I'll continue on. But I want to do one more thing. So here's our hurricanes, all the hurricanes for 2005. And one of the things that this allows us to do is to look at patterns in space. So spatial patterns. Do you see a pattern here? Can you tell a pattern? Like, is there a place where hurricanes seem to be stronger and places where they seem to be less strong? Yes, they seem to be stronger over water. Good, right? So wherever they go across land, they peter out, right? And where they start, this is where they begin, is over here in Africa. Where they start, they're not as strong, but they get stronger. And notice over here, yeah, use your observations. What's going on here? There's also something related here. Oh, good, Aiden. Especially in the Gulf. So where they're over water, they're stronger. And the Gulf of Mexico, right here, they're stronger. And it turns out that there is a correlation. There's a relationship. If I turn on this layer here, sea surface temperature, let me turn that off. here you can see the warmest part of the Atlantic Ocean is this region and up into the Gulf of Mexico. And in fact, in 2005, the Gulf of Mexico was quite warm. And the warmth actually powers hurricanes. Hurricanes are powered by rising air. So heat, warmer air rises, and that causes air from outside the warm place to come in and get warmed up and rise. So a warm ocean water, a patch of warm ocean water is heating the air above it, causing that heat to rise up. And really, really strong winds can result when the wind rushes in to replace, the air rushes in to replace the air that's risen. And so you get a big circulation happening. It spins, so you get spinning hurricanes because of the rotation of the earth. Hopefully I've piqued your curiosity about that. I won't get into any, we could go on and on about that, and I love that stuff. And so that is what contributed to a really, really busy hurricane season in the Gulf of Mexico that year. There's another path right here. Anybody know what's going on along this path? There's a special current that goes this way, and it travels up from this Gulf. That's a hint. Anybody know what that's called? It's called the Gulf Stream. Oops, I turned the wrong, there we go. It's called the Gulf Stream, and you can see a little finger of warm water traveling up here. And that's because the whole ocean circulates in a circular pattern this way. And so this warm water bumps up against the North American continent and then travels north. So there's this finger of water going up, and I will get to that question. That's a great question. There's a there's a finger of warm water traveling up there. And the reason they're all going in that direction is that that's the prevailing pattern of wind, right? That circulates around the world, and it literally pushes the water and pushes the hurricanes and creates that pattern. So all of our hurricanes start over Africa and the Western Atlantic and are pushed by prevailing winds towards the west, towards the United States. And one thing I don't have set up here, but if you look at cyclones in the Pacific, they work in the same way. They all start near the western side of the Pacific, the eastern side of the Pacific, and then move across the Pacific and slam into Asia. Yeah, great questions. So we look at these big patterns. We also take those patterns and we help communities. So this is the town where I work. And I've done a lot of research with this community because they are very, very vulnerable to something called storm surges. And those storm surges are surges in water height along coastlines that are caused by storm winds driving water. So if I zoom out here, you'll see.
We have a question that's relevant to what you're talking about here is, can you see other types of natural disasters?
Absolutely, yeah. And if we have time today, I'll show you, we'll look at earthquakes for sure. We definitely will have time for earthquakes. There's also, they use these kinds of maps for tornadoes. And I don't have a map like that either, but earthquakes and volcanoes, really pretty much any disaster, right? Even, COVID-19 is another kind of disaster that people are mapping a lot with these kinds of tools. Great questions, you guys. Keep them coming.
We do have another question. What is a mean tide?
Good. I was going to get to that. So so hang tight and I'll show you, I'll explain this in a minute. So here is Machias Bay, right? So this is the Machias River. It goes up here. This is East Machias River, or sorry, East Machias River and the Middle River. So it's this big bay, and tides go up and down every day, right? They go up and down 2 times a day. So there's 2 high tides and 2 low tides every day. And it's a cycle, and that's normal. It's caused by the moon and the sun pulling, their gravity pulls on the water. So that's normal, and we're used to that. The mean tidal height is the height of the water that's most average, right? That's the average between the highs and the low tides. And then a storm surge, when we have a big storm that comes that comes in ashore, and it blows, the wind blows water towards the shore, it can cause flooding. And what it does is it adds extra water to the tide. So this scenario, we call this a scenario, which means just, this story essentially, is what would happen if we had a Category 2 hurricane with that kind of strength come ashore. This is a worst case scenario, so that it's possible for us to have a storm of this force. We actually have them pretty often. And it came ashore and caused a storm surge during a mean tide, right? So when the water was in between high and low, just average, not high tide. So, and this is downtown Machias right here. So has anybody ever been to Machias? Anybody ever, eaten at Helen's restaurant? The best pie in the world is at Helen's restaurant. That is right here. That's Helen's restaurant. Pie from Helen's. If you have never been to Helen's, especially during blueberry season when you can get their blueberry pie, that is the best. Vanessa asked, is this the same thing as a slack tide? That's a great question. It is not. So slack tide happens when the tide pauses between high and then, or between, coming in and going out. So, so for instance, when the tide comes in, it'll get higher and higher and higher. And then there's a brief pause when it's at its highest, and then it begins to go down. And so slack tide means there's no flowing water, no current going back and forth. So that's when it's high and it pauses and there's no flowing water flowing in, or it's low and it pauses and there's no flowing water flowing out. And so mean tide is right in the middle. Oh, great. Jack, awesome. Was it so awesome? Wasn't it awesome? And Zoe, it absolutely is like a roller coaster, and it's a 24/7 roller coaster. And if you haven't come to Helen's to get blueberry pie, you must do it. It's required. Just putting that out there. Put it on your bucket list. So anyway, so one thing I should mention is that on April 9th and 10th of this year, this flood happened. We had this flood. And this flood, back before climate change was a thing, would happen on average about once every 100 years. So in any given year, you had a 1 in 100 chance of that happening. But we have had floods of this magnitude, or very close to it, several times over the last 5 years. And so Machias has a problem. Helen's restaurant, which is the greatest pie in the world, you got to protect that. But there's also right here, this is a wastewater treatment plant. So when you flush the toilet, that's in Machias, that's where it goes. And so if this thing floods, we're in big trouble. It already overflows when we have too much storm water, and that causes pollution in the bay, and it causes the shellfish for the fried clams that they serve at Helen's. They have to close the fishery down, and Helen's doesn't get there. And it did happen in Maine. This is Machias, Maine, yeah. And this kind of thing with climate change is happening more and more often. And so what we've done is to help the town figure out what to do about that. So we have a number of different scenarios, including ones that include sea level rise. So this one, this is a Category 2 high tide, but it's also about what would happen with 3 feet of sea level rise. And so the same kind of storm that we had just a month ago could happen. And if it happened after 3 feet of sea level rise, say in 20 years, this is what downtown would look like. And so we're helping the town design a way to protect the downtown from this kind of flood, which includes a seawall that you'll be able to walk on top of, so it'll be really pretty views of the river, and raising part of this thing is called a dike or a causeway, raising that up. And it's possible also some of these buildings may need to move. This one, for instance, has been flooding repeatedly, and so we had to it's been removed already. So, oh my gosh, are we supposed to end at 3:45? This is too much fun, like, just saying.
We have some flexibility.
Okay, so I want to show you guys, I'm going to skip the volcano one. I'm going to go to earthquakes. And for this, I'm going to start just with a blank map. Let me choose a base map. This one is good. Oh, I don't know why it's not giving me, it's giving me difficulty. Well, I guess we'll just stick with this. That's okay. Oh, there we go. So this is something that you can do. Notice I'm not signed in. This is not, and this is being recorded, right? Are we recording this so they could come back and look at it if they wanted?
Yes, this will be posted on our website. It is being recorded. And I can also email everybody who signed up that information sheet that you sent with all the links, if that's helpful.
Excellent. And so all the information you need to be able to do this, all the links and so forth that you need to be able to do this is on that sheet. So I would like you to guess how far away from, let's say, Orono, Maine, the nearest earthquake has been in the last month. So everybody guess, give me the number of miles you think the nearest earthquake to Orono, Maine has been in the last month. So the last 30 days, how close is the nearest earthquake to Orono? 50 miles, 70 miles, 54. We'll see who wins. 100, 25. Okay, so let's 5. Ooh, okay. So we've got a range of guesses, and we'll see who's closest. So there's something really, really cool right here. There's this spreadsheets available from the U.S. Geological Survey. And USGS has a whole bunch, they're all over the world, of seismometers, which is a tool that is really, really sensitive and measures jiggling, basically. And so they can detect even really, really, really tiny earthquakes. And so, and it's actually super, super fun to do. And so they detect all the earthquakes from all over the world, and they update it, as you see, every single minute. And there's this awesome little trick. Now I can just click on this and it will open this spreadsheet, or it will allow me to download it, and I'm not gonna do it, but it opens a spreadsheet that looks like this. That's not that useful. I can't see where they are, but it has location information, latitude and longitude, right? You probably have learned in school about that. Those are coordinates that allow us to place those things on a map. And so I'm going to right click where it says all earthquakes. This is under the past 30 days. I'm going to right click on this, and I'm just going to copy the link address. So I don't want to download that table. I'm just going to copy its address. And then I'm going to come back to my map, this blank map that I have. I'm going to click modify the map right here. And then I'm going to add a layer from the web. The type of layer that I need to add is called a CSV file, comma separated values. And then I just right click and I'm going to paste that address. So notice, see, it ends in CSV for comma separated values. And this is all month, all of the earthquakes in the world. And I'll click add layer. And it'll take a sec and I'll read that. Hopefully it won't make a liar out of me. Come on. There's a lot of earthquakes in the world. There we go. And so there's a point for every earthquake. And now I'm going to remember it's a table, right? It's a spreadsheet, a table of data. And one of the items, one of the columns in the table is mag, or magnitude, meaning how strong the earthquake was. And so all of a sudden my map is kind of a mess. I'm going to clean it up a little bit. But you can see the symbols, right, vary by size. So I'll click this and I can change the size. I'm going to make the smallest ones really small. I'll make them like 3. And the max, I think, maybe should be like 30. So it's not quite so large. And I'll click OK and done. And so now, and I can even change the color. I don't really like the orange color. I'm going to change it to a red. I like red for earthquakes. Okay, so now it's a little tough to see, but I'm going to zoom in and things will get a little easier to see. I'll click OK here. And that way, then we can measure how far the nearest earthquake has been from Orono in the last month. Look at that. So it looks like there was one in Quebec and one in northern New Hampshire. I'll have to zoom in a little closer to see where Orono is. So, and I can change, should be able to change my base map to something more useful. How about this? Yeah, it's still not that useful, but anyway, so let's say, and I have this measure tool right here, and we got to see who's right. So, I'd say, yeah, right about here. So that one is 142 miles, and this one's probably a little farther. Yep, 170. So in the last month, the closest earthquake was 142 miles away. Usually in any given month, we have an earthquake in Maine. And this month, of course, when I was going to show you guys this, we haven't had any earthquakes in Maine. We do get them upon occasion. So let's see. Okay, so who won the bet? Jesse, you win. Yay, Jesse. Woo! So anyway, so this is a really, really fun tool. I wanted to show you one more thing with this, and then I swear to God, I'll wrap up, I promise. So notice places where we have lots of earthquakes. And there's an earthquake center in a really kind of weird spot right here in Oklahoma and Kansas. Any ideas what's going on there? You probably know why we have so many in California. What's going on in Oklahoma? Any ideas? Does anybody know what kind of, so that's a great guess. So in California, there are two tectonic plates that are rubbing against each other that cause all these earthquakes. And but in Oklahoma, there's not. It's right in the middle of a plate. So there's no reason why there would be this rubbing. And one thing that we don't have time for this, but one thing that we'd learn if we click on these, we would see their depths are, so 4 miles, 5 miles. And then over here, the depths are deeper, right? 15 miles, 18 miles. These are really shallow. The shallow earthquakes are caused by fracking. And that is hydrologic fracturing of the Earth's crust in order to free up natural gas and to some degree petroleum. And that's destabilizing the crust under this area, and it's causing a bunch of earthquakes. And those are detectable on the USGS seismometers. And so if we were to look at this maybe 15 years ago before they started this fracking, we would not see this cluster of earthquakes in this way. We would just see a scattering the way we see across the rest of the United States. Anyway, I should move on. So let me wrap up. I want to draw your attention to a couple things. First of all, if you're interested in this stuff, there's a lot you can do to get involved with this. So we do have, if you're in high school, we do have, an early college program where you can earn college credit and take classes and even earn a certificate at UMaine at Machias in GIS. And you can do that all online, so you don't have to come or live near Machias. You don't even have to live in Maine if you'd like to do it. And so there's a link here about enrolling, and we do have a class, and we need more students in that class. It's tuition free for Maine students, and it's very reduced tuition for out-of-state students. That's happening this summer, so in July, all about how to use a GPS. And all you need is a cell phone, a smartphone, or a tablet in order to do it. So I encourage you, if you're in college, in high school, and you'd like to learn more about it and have some fun stuff to do over the summer, I encourage you to do that. Also, this stuff is free for schools. Your school probably already has an account, but they may not even know it. And so I included a link that you can send along to your teachers if you want to use this stuff in school. And it's a great way, like you can really impress your teachers by including a map that you made using this stuff in a project. And it's really, really fun and really easy to do. And there's a lot you can do with it. I'll leave it there, and I just realized here's the link to this, and I think you'll also get it in an email, but this link I just put in the chat will lead you directly to this, this document, so you can get all this stuff. Plus I have a whole earthquakes and tectonic plates. It's actually supposed to be volcanoes and tectonic plates, and tectonic plates. I have a whole other one that we didn't even have time to go over. Can you tell I love this stuff, and it's really fun and exciting. Any final questions before we wrap up? I'll dance to the music in my head while I wait to see if you have questions.
Feel free to put those in the Q&A box or even in chat if it's easier for you right now.
And I will say, so my dog is sitting next to me, and he's I'll introduce you. This is Django, and he knows when Zoom meetings are wrapping up. He can tell by the sound, and he always wakes up when that's happening. And so my students always know to wait for Django as we're wrapping up class, right, buddy? Yeah, he's giving me a very, very disapproving look right now. He's pretty cute. He's the cutest. He really is. And he's ready for his WALK right now. Vanessa, was that a question for me, what I find most fascinating about maps? Or were you asking the participants?
Yes, that is a question for you.
Okay. What I find most fascinating about maps is that it gives me a new view of the world that I can't get in any other way, especially since I have all these like crazy superpowers, right? Like, I was just meeting with some of my colleagues earlier about some of this hurricane preparedness work that we're doing. And we were talking about the fact that when we make these maps, we can add other layers to these maps. So for instance, I won't waste time showing you how right now, but I can take the land parcels, so all the boundaries for everybody's land that they own in the town, and I can combine that here. I can also take the town's zoning. So I know whether their zoning is matching, right, the risk that they have, right? So zoning, this is all zoned commercially, right? And this is zoned residential. And so I can see by overlaying those together that it's the commercial district that is in the flood zone. We overlaid the flood information with the road information to see which roads would get flooded. So those, and the buildings too. And so the buildings and the roads are now shown which would be flooded. And even the ones here, let me find some yellow ones. That's not a good scenario. If I go to category 3, I think is loaded. Oh, there we go. See how these are yellow? That means during the flood, they'd be cut off. See, I told you, he knew we were getting wrapped up and we didn't stop. So now he's telling me all about it. So anyway, sorry about that. So it allows me to see things and help other people see things that they couldn't see any other way. You get to look down on the earth. It reminds me of this one time I was in an airplane and we were flying over, it was clear skies so you can see the ground, and somebody was looking out the window and I heard them say, "It's just like Google Earth," which is really funny when really it's Google Earth that's supposed to be just like looking out of an airplane. So it gives you that bird's eye view, that airplane view without having to go in an airplane. And I love that. I'm absolutely fascinated by it. And, it's really, really, really fun. Thank you. Thanks for coming. I'm so glad you were here.
I'm going to launch a quick poll. This is our last spring session, so I'd love to have your impression of today's session, but also we'd love to put these on again in the fall for you guys. A lot of you have participated in several of these, so if there are particular topics you'd like me to line up for some fall sessions, just let us know in the chat box. We'll see what we can do. We might be able to get Dr. Johnson and her dog back in the fall, possibly, to go a little more in depth into some of these natural disasters and planning for them. Dr. Johnson, this is amazing, and I am going to take that resource sheet that you shared with us and make sure that gets sent out to all of our participants today so that they have really easy access to it as well, if that's okay with you.
Please, yes. And I will put my contact information on that sheet as well. And I can go ahead and stop the share.
That's great. And if anybody has any last questions, now's the time to ask them. But in the meantime, as we're wrapping up, I think Jessie is also going to put a link in the chat box about where you would find information on some of 4-H's summer programming. We're not there yet. We don't have anything ready for you to sign up for, but in a couple weeks we will. I think we'll probably send out an email to everybody letting them know when registration is live, but we do have a lot of activities coming up for summer. They're a little bit different than the science cafes. And yeah, if you can tell us what types of science or engineering subjects you're interested in, I'll try to line some of those up for fall for you. And any last questions?
Thanks so much, everybody. That was really, really fun. Great, great questions.
Thanks for sharing about early college as well. I think that's something that a lot of people don't know about, but more and more universities, especially here in Maine, are offering these opportunities to high school students that they can take college classes for free. And that's pretty awesome, or very low cost.
Yeah, it's really awesome. We're really excited. It's a great way to dip your toe into a field that you feel like you might be interested in. And UMaine Machias is a great place because our classes are really small and you get a lot of attention from your professors. So it's a really good spot to do early college as well. And you're very welcome. Django spends a lot of time with me on Zoom these days, and people seem to appreciate him.
And once we're past this whole COVID-19 virus mess, I highly encourage you to visit UMaine Machias and the University of Maine. There's so much both universities have to offer, and they're really great places to come visit, just not now, because none of us are actually working there. We'll be back hopefully soon, but as of right now, we are all working out of our houses.
It's true.
And for those of you who have been online with us more than a couple of sessions, we are going to send out a larger evaluation to you. It would be really great if you can tell us how we did and tell us what you liked about these sessions and help us improve for more students like you in the fall. With that, thanks so much for coming out today. Really appreciate it. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the week and a wonderful summer. I hope to see you all back here in hopefully September.
Yay.
Yay. Thanks so much.
Bye, everybody.